Thank you very much indeed, Judy, for that very warm introduction. Thank you to all of you for being here this morning. It is a real pleasure. The Conservative Party, of course, has the right to form the government of the UK and has indeed done that. But it was not the biggest party in 3 of the 4 nations of the UK, far from it, in fact. And so the legitimacy of its actions in those other nations comes very clearly into focus. And so, as I discussed with the Prime Minister when we met after the election, what happens to the future of the United Kingdom now in the years ahead will, at least in part, depend upon how responsively Westminster deals with the reality that in political as well as in constitutional terms, the UK is not a unitary state. Weakens the United Kingdom in an international context. Scotland. There is no second Scottish independence referendum on the immediate horizon, of course, but I do think it is a reasonable point to make that if the United Kingdom is to remain intact in the years to come, it must demonstrate, and it must demonstrate very clearly, that it can adapt to multinational and multi-party politics in a far more substantial manner than it has often done in the past. Now, here in the United States, of course, you're very used to the idea of 50 different state. I would argue, for many people in Scotland, the referendum on the EU simply isn't a priority, but nevertheless, it does raise the possibility, depending on how the result goes across the UK, that Scotland could be taken out of the European Union against our will. And that's why the European question is in some ways very directly linked to the question of how if Scotland does find itself taken out of the European Union against a vote in Scotland to remain in, then it could produce a demand for another independence referendum, which may well be unstoppable. But I would argue, and do argue, that the UK government has it within their power to remove that possibility by agreeing to the double majority provision that we're putting forward. It's a real pleasure for me to be here. It's a real pleasure